Hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Day In, Day Out podcast. This is episode 110. And today on the podcast, we had Matt Zinman. Yes, he is a difference maker, optimist, author, podcast host, a non-profit founder, a wellness and kindness advocate, to name but a few things. We talked about a number of different topics today, basically ranging from how he came up with the idea and concept for his book, what made him decide to start up a podcast himself, and yeah, he told a very sort of emotional story about how he came up with the first chapter for his book. All I've got to say is it was a joy to have him on the podcast today, and I look forward to having him back on the podcast in the future to talk about many other things, especially maybe hockey. I might get into that. But please sit back, enjoy the podcast, and have a great day. Hey, peace. Hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Day In, Day Out podcast. This is episode 110. And today I am very privileged, lucky to have Matt Zinman on the podcast today. He is a difference maker, optimist, author, podcast host, non-profit founder, wellness and kindness advocate. I'm a little bit tired.
You're exhausted.
Yes. How are you today, Matt?
Miwa, it's a pleasure to be here. I am ready.
He is ready. I've got to ask, what is a difference maker? Because what is that about, sir?
You know, it's something that I've learned is kind of baked in to my DNA. And I go back to, as a teen, some of my first jobs, I worked at Pizza Hut. And I was a dough master back to my humble beginnings. And I thought, wow, if I only took the dough this way or that way, I was trying to introduce new products to some 16-year-old kid. So yeah, it's just wanting to impact as many people as possible in a positive way. It's always been the driving force of my being, and I've been able to lean in a little bit more and then some in the past year or two. So I've never been happier.
So with that, like with your sort of humble beginnings as a dough master,
Right.
like at Pizza Hut. My God, it's been such a long time since I've been into a Pizza Hut or seen a Pizza Hut.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been to one ever since I quit.
Yeah. So, like, did you sort of just carry this forward into sort of every aspect? Like when you were, say, playing hockey and stuff like this, I'm making a difference here because of X, Y, Z. Or yeah.
Sure. Well, certainly goes in parallel with a career and personal experiences. You mentioned being an athlete, and I am a lifelong ice hockey player. I have a game tonight, as a matter of fact. And that's something when you play an organized sport, that certainly ingrains you with all kinds of different experiences and friendships, and just no substitute for just even still being in the locker room, right? The game within the game and having fun. I was never a professional athlete. I made it as far as being captain of Temple University here in Philadelphia. It's my alma mater, and I was captain junior and senior year, and then we went undefeated champions. I played for Team USA, not the Miracle on Ice Team USA, but I was in that system. And it did some traveling to in and around Europe and some tournaments and things like that. I think I was a walk-on. I was like the last guy on the team. I was a bench warmer half the time, but then they let me play, so that was good. No, and like I said, I'm still playing, and it's just part of you. And I'm sure anybody who's been in an organized sport or martial art or even in the military, there's actually a lot of science behind that being at a foundation for what helps people succeed.
Yeah, I know. Totally agree. Like this is the thing when you say the miracle on ice, like that team. Like I
Right.
know a little bit about that team. Like basically, it was against like the world champions at the time was
Right.
Russia, height
It was
of
the
the
Russians.
war. everything
Right.
like that. Yeah. So you were in that system. My God, that must have been interesting to say the least.
Yeah, it's just so highly competitive. There's a part of it that is almost hard to explain, just too competitive. Like rabid parents and just so intense. But yeah, I mean, for those who may be less the fan, the Miracle on Ice before the Olympics were recruiting professionals. They were using the best college
Yeah.
students throughout the system, and so these are just a bunch of college kids, and they were up against this is during the Cold War against the most dominant hockey force in the world for a decade, and they somehow beat the Russians. And it's a good movie if you ever have a
Yeah.
chance to see that.
Yeah, no, like that's the thing. When you mentioned that, I was like, yeah, because I've been trying to think of like different hockey things I've seen over the sort of course of my time, and like that was one of them. And like there was this Netflix documentary which has disappeared off of the UK Netflix called Ice Guardians. I don't know if you've watched that. Basically,
Oh,
it's about ice hockey enforcers. Like I think was something like 5 years ago when they sort of changed the rules about people like being enforcers, like not being able to take other people out who may have like broke the, the mysterious code of hockey. So it's like, yeah,
right. I'll have to check that out. And of course, here in Philadelphia, going back to the early years, what really got me into it, the Philadelphia Flyers,
mm,
and they won the Stanley Cup 2 years in a row, and they were called the Broad Street Bullies. They were known as the toughest team in the league, right? In the old days, where it might have been more fisticuffs than goals. So that's what I grew up on.
yeah. So like basically, do you partake in the fisticuffs as you play now, or is it kind of like, you know what? No.
I've been playing at this point for over 45 years. So it's happened in that span of time. Like it's an intense game. But I'm not usually the guy who's in the middle of it. And you know, so, in college, in the USA system, that was more likely. But I'm in beer league now, basically. So you're just out there not to get hurt. Guys got to go to work the next day. So, you're not really, it actually does still happen every now and again, but it's a rarity.
I
Yeah.
can imagine like there's like a couple of guys like who used to be like those little speed demons, like trying to do the same things again. That's like, okay, give
Yeah.
me a moment.
Take it a little too seriously. It's transferable in all the sports. Yeah. But I'm going to play till I'm at least 99. That's it.
99.
Yeah.
All right, this is the thing. Like, yes, stem cell technology as it is, I'm sure like it'll improve by then.
That's
Like,
what I say. Exactly. Like bionic,
yeah,
like you heard it here. I'll be playing.
just
I'm
replacement therapy.
serious.
Yeah.
All right.
So tell me, so how did you sort of get started in the sort of realm of business you're in today? Like, what got you there? Because look, I could talk to you about hockey for a good, like, healthy chunk of
Yeah.
time,
Right.
and like, yeah, like just like I'll pump you for all the information in the world. But
Sure.
yeah, how did you sort of like, you know what, businessman, come on.
Well, I'm pretty much on my third career. So the short of that is coming out of Temple, I was journalism degree and I went into the field of marketing, public relations, and I worked for a number of agencies. I was always on the consulting side in and around Philadelphia. And in 2002, I had an intersection point. So for one, I became a single dad at that
Okay.
time, and my son was only 2. So, I needed that flexibility. Diapers and bottles were half of the time back then. And I decided to start my own firm and did that for a few years. And then I got into the world of internships and apprenticeships, which is something that had always been, I had for myself, led to my first job,
Hmm.
always ran the programs for employers, always enjoyed going back to the schools, being a guest in the classrooms. And I saw the market need. It was just nothing formalized out there, and developed a whole set of intellectual property and kind of like the wheel of, right? Here you go, employer, everything you need to run a program. All of that is still in place. And we're at about 2005 and the 2007 area now. And I started a nonprofit called the Internship Institute, which has, and again, been my main priority in about the past 15 years ever since. And then last year, I had another inflection point. I had a little bit of bandwidth. My son's off to college.
Yeah.
I'm remarried now, and my wife and I have another business. And I was between grants with the nonprofit,
Yeah.
and I was, at this point, it's like, well, what would I regret not doing? I've got,
Okay.
ideally lots of life ahead of me. Here's where I am. And I knew this book was something that I'd always wanted to do, and started just putting my head down. And I wasn't really sure like what I had, like for anybody who wants to write a book,
Mm,
it's just, take 2 days, write it all out. Maybe it's a blog, or maybe it's something more. And so I went for it, and the book came out of all things end of March, right as COVID hit here in the States. So we're now into my third career, right? So at the same time, with COVID hitting, the nonprofit went onto the side burner entirely. All
mm,
internships, all apprenticeships are by the wayside. It's not exactly a thriving industry, but at the same time, and still, of course, not. We're still at our peak. But it was good timing, if that sounds odd to a degree. In writing the book, I really hadn't had an end game. I really didn't think there was much beyond that. Meanwhile, it was this. I just felt the need to write it. I wanted to get out there. It was difference making. I paid for it out of my pocket. It wasn't some business expense like I'm a coaching business or something. It wasn't meant
mhm.
to be some glorified business card. As odd as it sounds, it's a book that's meant to be read. I want to get it to the masses. And then in terms of leaning in doing interviews like this, like I just love this. There are people on the other side of our microphones hearing this, who we get to impact in a positive way. And continuing in the conversation here, but somewhere along the way, I had one at the end of a podcast, and this host said to me, "Have you ever thought about starting your own?" And I was like, "No." It's like I didn't even think twice. It's just I didn't really know much about it. And it was within a couple of days I had a pretty major coincidence that led me to just pursue and get more curious. And then that certainly led me to do it. And I'm sure it'll come up. My the book Z-isms, the podcast Insights to Live By. And we were talking before the show, right? So I'm now on, coming up on episode 30,
Yeah.
and I'm just having a blast. So as I look at where I am, right, it wasn't just the book. Now it's the podcast, continuing to lean in, continuing to enjoy it. Nonprofit's still on the side burner. I do plan on circling back. That's kind of my life's work to a
Mm,
degree, lots of unfinished business. But now I do have that vision in mind. I am going beyond the podcast. I'm developing the audio book, the workbook, the workshops, all the things that a content developer in the mindset, personal improvement and life enrichment space would do. And I want to go all the way now. So in a way, it's kind of like my calling found me, if that's fair enough to say. I've just, with the nonprofit, with that business, it's like that feeling of swimming upstream. I don't think I could possibly have tried anything more difficult in going into that space. I have a lot to show for it.
mm.
Same, apprenticeships by any other name, right? Internship Institute, mostly on the professional side. But this, it really does feel like things are going my way. You do feel like you're swimming with the current. And now I want to keep going.
Yeah, it's like basically from what you said, you had a very sort of serendipitous flow with it all because, like, yes, March, like basically the pandemic, the
Yeah.
the great the great global lockdown, pretty much hit straight away.
My launch parties, my signings, haven't done a signing for
Yeah,
the book, there's
yeah,
trade-offs, but I'm a happy guy.
yeah. Well, like this is the thing. A, a lady from Nigeria named Jane, like great lady, like does stems and everything like this, like stems basically. Oh god, I'm gonna blank on how. Science, technology, engineering, maths, and she like basically. Oh, she basically no eyes. She basically started her book and sort of launched it around the same time, and she was kind of at a loss, and then yeah, she was like, okay, podcasting, get on that circuit as quickly as possible.
Right.
It's just like right, and yeah. she's done really well out of it. Like it seems like you've been doing like really well out of it as well, because I've seen you've been appearing on a number of different podcasts as a guest at this present time. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's been great, and the interesting thing that you don't really know until after the fact, when in writing a book, like I can't claim to say that I am really all that familiar with the other people in the space
Mm,
around personal development. I mean, I haven't read a self-help book in probably 20 years, as odd as that may sound. Well, maybe a little bit, but nothing like major. I
mm,
certainly was into that a lot in my late 20s and 30s and things. But the point is that I wrote this in a bubble. So I didn't really have any frame of reference for what other people are saying. And a lot of this coming out of life experience and things that have served me well, reason why I wanted to write the book in the first place, and feeling a personal responsibility around sharing these things that I think can help other people, and telling it from the vantage point of a personal conversation. And
mm.
in doing that, sharing a number of personal things along the way. And so that obviously makes it unique with those anecdotes. But then when you start getting out and you have these conversations and you realize, no, not really, people aren't talking about a number of these things that I imagine we'll be talking about shortly
Yeah.
in the same way. And that is really what's keeping me going, to know that I have something that stands apart.
Mm, yeah, I imagine, like, because when you said yes, like you became a single father with a 2 year old like kid, like, okay, like let's just say that is quite unusual in the sort of normal like way things play
Right.
out. How like how is did that? Like, what did you have to sort of turn to sort of like okay, help you through that time, because you're a parent by yourself looking after a 2 year old, and yeah, you need that flexibility, and you don't really have that support, if you get what I mean.
Absolutely. And I really honestly didn't have a lot of support. My parents are long gone, and my families are in different places. It was very important to me to be a 50% dad. As hard as that was, um, I just thought it was just my life priority.
Mm,
And of course, it's a very difficult decision for anyone to do a divorce, especially with a young one. And to me, it was important that, for the very reason why you would get divorced, I did not want my son, Jake, to be growing up in a stressful environment. And I felt it was better that I have that more concentrated time with him and expose him to other things. And of course, it's again one of those things you don't realize until later on. It was probably one of the best decisions I could have made, and for him too. And I get along with his mom quite well too. We were responsible co-parents.
mm,
But I you just that's a reality check, no doubt about it. But it's like anything, you get thrown baby with the bathwater, as the saying goes, and you just do the do, and kids got to get fed, and keep them active, and singing to him at night back then. And wow, it's been a long road. He's 20 years old now.
mm. And he's off to college like this this fall, well, next year or this year.
He's back home now
Okay.
because of COVID. Thanks, COVID. He's taking online classes. My wife's daughter, who's just turned 16, Greta, her high school is now online, which she's loving. But I feel bad for Jake, for anybody who is missing out on that college experience right
Mm,
now. But he's kind of backed off. He's not taking full course load. He's also working, and that way thank goodness, right? It looks like we're going to be on the other side. There is a post-COVID world for us, and by next fall, ideally, right, things will be back to normal to a degree, certainly at the colleges, and he'll be a sophomore at that time, and he'll still have that experience ahead of him.
yes. Like yes, a number of different companies now have like been like vaccines are coming and this. So yeah, I was told I think it's going to be around about sort of June, July,
Right.
and that's when like the world's going to be like sort of normalized. Like I hate using the term the new normal, because like yes, I've been using it a lot. I'm like going, good God, I'm tired of saying it. What's the new normal going to be?
Who knows? I mean, that's why it's important to live life in the present.
Mm,
Let things unfold.
absolutely. So if if someone came up to you now and went, yeah, I needed help with my own self-development, what would you sort of say would be the first sort of steps they should take?
It's a great question. Well, I think the first step is, and really two things. One is it starts with know thyself.
Mm,
What is their relationship with themselves? And no matter what, you have to start there, wherever it is that you are. So there may be a lot of work around self discovery and mindset.
mm,
So that's certainly at the foundation. And then on the far side of that, do you know your why? And what's the work you need to do to really feel like, back to really at the front end of the book, what would I regret not doing it? It's one of the main questions in discovering your why, if you don't know it already. And so, what will it take for you to envision that already occurring once you're clear about it, and then working backwards from that inevitability, uh, eventuality, whatever you want to call it? What is it that you need to do to achieve it? And you're now at point A. So that's that's how I would approach it.
mm. And like this is the thing, like there are like I know there's sort of two sort of like approaches in some regards with it. One which is like end goal orientated, and one which is sort of like you have a sort of constantly evolving goal. What would you say? I don't like. What would you say would be sort of one of the best measures to take? The end, like a final goal, or just like something which evolves as time goes by?
Well, it's certainly on a case by case basis, right? There's no universal answer, I don't think, to that question. But if I were to give one anyway,
Mhm.
uh, I, I think that again, if let's just say that you are an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
In that case, you're certainly going to have your goal focused around a business plan and the things that come along with that. Certainly part of the initial goal, if you haven't achieved it already, is self-sustainability. That you get to the point where you're in the never look back phase of having a company grow and know that you've reached that point, that there's quote unquote no looking back. And then there's that further vision for you as to where it is that you take it. Obviously, a succession plan as part of your business plan. So that's one part of the answer. I also will say, let's go back to the personal side, and we hadn't mentioned this. I actually am just now recovering from COVID. I got it about 2.5 weeks ago.
Right.
Not entirely sure where. My wife Erica also, went through 8 days of fever, and it's scary. It's really scary, and it's no fun. And I just am so grateful to be having this conversation now, and so sad for the many people who can't,
Mm.
and some hard times out there. And I have to say, Miwa, this is the first time in my life where I had to confront my mortality, like for real.
Okay.
When you get to day 4 and 5, you're online like, what's the progression of this thing? What's the standard? And it's you're reading. You could say it's scary, or what do you know about this? Well, you get to day 10 or day 12, you're in trouble. This
Mm.
this thing gets in your lungs, right? And according to that, the average uh the span is that at 19 days, is that people who don't make it, it's that around the 19th day, that from onset, not necessarily from pre onset of symptoms.
Yeah.
And you sit there and you think, you know like, I'm on day 7, or right. And so I really did have to confront that more than ever in recent days. And part of it was, well, first of all, I have a lot of unfinished business, and a lot of things that we've already talked about. But it was really more along the lines of, how do I want to feel when we all die? How,
Mm.
how do I want to feel when that time comes? And I realized, it's just, like, what a ride. I did it. whatever that is. I'm pretty clear about that. But the point is that I'm curious, about what comes next,
Mm,
no matter what it is. That's being at peace, right? That's what my total end, purpose is. That why? What is that experience I want to have on a conscious level, to be able to look back and say, no regrets. And I think that's the same for anyone. So getting clear about that on a personal basis or on a professional level,
mm,
it's too easy to take things for granted. And if you don't, the point is it really doesn't take a whole lot of effort. It's not weeks, it's not months. You just have to put yourself in the place of, what is my why? How do I achieve that? And just do the exercise. People aren't going to do typically anything that either they don't have to do or they got to force themselves to do it, right? So I know that's very straightforward, but how many people actually do it? And I think that's the ultimate answer to your question.
yeah. I think with regards to many a person like out there who are thinking about doing something new, doing something different, like when they sort of look at their sort of why, I don't think they do really look at their why, and they just sort of like get to doing something because they just want to do something different. When the sort of why comes into play, more so is when times are difficult and hard. That's what your why does. It's not push it, it sort of pulls you to it. You're not like driving it forward. You're just being pulled towards it. And like, yeah, the value of that why is so important. And like, yeah, I'm sorry you had like the old COVID, but yeah, like the whole
Yeah.
thing is, I think with this year for a lot of people, um when like we all lose people as time goes by, and like, it's kind of like when you lose that person, it's like, yeah, I need to seize life, I need to do this, I need to go here, seize the day. And then 1 2 weeks later, it kind of gets a little bit more foggy in your mind with that sort of seize the day moment. Then a few months go by and it's gone. But this time around, with everything what's gone on, I think a lot more people have had to sort of face their mortality. People who have like had like the virus, like yourself, like COVID, and people who've maybe lost people, or just people just seeing all of it go down. I think it's made a lot more people like go, okay, yeah, where am I going? What?
Right. And I've thought a lot about this, and I know we're at a, how much more serious can a conversation get
Hey.
where we are right here. But someone's why doesn't have to be some great achievement.
Mm,
That it really comes down to your values. It could be your family,
mm,
straight up your family. That's your legacy. Certainly part of what I see as part of my why. I'm certainly most people do, but just to live life and having an ongoing sense of awareness about the enrichment that you are experiencing, that's a solid why. Being with your family and friends and just having experiences,
mm.
making sure, just the continuous bucket list, I guess,
Hey.
is that's a pretty good why. You don't have to set the world on fire, but I do think it is important to have it be, living life by choice and by design rather than chance.
Mm. Yeah, no, like this is the thing. I agree. I think people sort of concepts of success um get too sort of caught up with like, how can I put it? Like, yeah, the $1 billion markers. If you like, if you don't have this, you don't have that, you are not successful. And like the truth of the matter is, like, okay, look, you've successfully got your one kid into college at this present time. The second kid looks like she's going to be on her way as well.
Yeah, I'm not
And
worried about Greta.
yeah, it's like, yeah, it's like, yeah. So it's a case of bam, like that kid, like that's most really like, yeah, that is a success. I got my kid to adulthood and they seem to be able to take on the world quite successfully by themselves. And yeah, some other person will be like, yeah, I want the Lamborghini, I want the Ferrari. And look, more power to you. If that's what you want, go with that. But if you're not really in tune with what you want, and you're like, oh yeah, the Ferrari's the thing, you that's a lot of misery to be chasing right there.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be realistic. Just a kind of funny comment. All the credit, of course, goes to Erica, my wife. You could take Greta and put a quarter in her pocket and drop her off on the other side of the planet and never have a worry. She'll be just fine. So she keeps me very humble.
I
That's
see
kind
what
of
you like.
her role. She's great.
So, okay, I need to work on these survival skills. Okay, put me into Bogota. What?
No worries. She will figure it out.
Yeah.
Mad skills.
Okay, start the clock. 3 days. Are we back home?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Loving it. Like, so with like with regards to sort of the non-profit, like with the internships disappearing and everything like this, because 2019 it looked like okay, everything was gangbusters, everything was going well. Like, what do you think, like 2021, well, like I'm just saying this year's a write-off at this present time because we are currently in November, Thanksgiving for you guys at the end of this week, and yeah, Christmas time from there. What do you think 2021 might hold, do you think?
I think it really has a lot to do with the employers. Obviously, that's where the opportunity is. And I haven't just worked with college students. I've done grants for disadvantaged youth, military in transition, coming back into civilian career. It all comes down to the employer. And basically, for my program that I've run since '02 has been virtual.
Mm.
And now that's really where the pendulum has swung. And I am still doing trainings on virtual. I did one a couple weeks back for colleges to teach their career centers how to teach employers to do virtual internship programs. It really, and also, of course, I can't speak for knowing this worldwide, but I believe, internships certainly in Europe and Germany, Switzerland, here in the States, in a lot of cases, they're required to earn your academic degree. So, it's cart and horse. How do you get that experience and get your degree if no one is offering the opportunity? So, I'm not really up to speed, honestly, on what the schools are doing to adapt to those requirements, but I do think the dust will settle
Mm.
and that internships will be certainly for a while more along the lines of virtual. I mean, I've had interns I've never met. It's just kind of how it is. So that's a lot of what I've been teaching more recently is on the virtual programs.
Right. And this is the thing. I think with regards to next year, virtual programs, as you were like teaching right now, I think that sort of, I've, I think there's been a little bit of a, not so much a robbery, but I think a sort of holding back, setback for quite a lot of youngsters coming back into it, that for the next sort of 18 months, they've had the pause button put on them, and they've got no choice in the matter, which I think is a little bit hard, but it's the way the world is right now. Um, so how do you think the employers will get back on it sort of straight away, or is it a case of they're waiting for grants and like funding from the government to come through?
I honestly don't know the answer. It's certainly a very relevant question. I just don't have the I'm doing what I've been doing more so since March. I don't really have my finger as much on the pulse with how things have changed with and in and around COVID. I think on a on a general basis, internships, apprenticeships by any other name happen one-on-one.
Mm.
It's really an individual relationship with a supervisor or a mentor. And a lot of what I train on is about creating that opportunity and for supervisors to recognize that there are many myths around providing these experiences, like it takes more time, it's not worth it, their kids, what can they do? um, we've got a lot of data on how a single supervisor can gain over 200 days of work productivity by doing it right. There's a certain way to do it right.
Mm.
And there's a productivity multiplier. And, while we're on topic, I'll just say, just at the very heart of it all, if a supervisor takes inventory of projects, and we provide menus for this and everything else just to take the think work and heavy lifting out of it, and they can recognize that, wow, now I've taken this inventory, I have a defined need. Most companies, individuals, they need help with social media and content development, and it's just cuts across the board. And by specialized industry, they'll see straight up, wow, I could really use, or maybe use is not quite the right word, benefit from having a young person, or even a military person who's coming out of the service, or disadvantaged youth, for example, to come in and help with this.
Mm.
And that also, that defined need is also going to be something that they can rely on to write their recruiting descriptions. They now know who they need and what skills they need to do the projects they've defined. And then you want to have multiple interns, so that in working off of that core content of projects that you're going to delegate, well, someone might be better at writing. Someone might be better. This other person's better at social media and behind the scenes, in front of, forward facing. So who to delegate what project to, and to the other person. And that's really what's at the heart of it, because now you're really customizing the experience for the person and the work that they want to do. You're leveraging the skills and that they have to provide to have the most quality work and value. And it's a win. It's an all around win. So it really is just a matter of doing it right. And quite honestly, in my recent podcast episodes, I've covered this topic extensively, both on the employer side and now for the student side, which is also specific to job seekers. The mechanics and
Mm.
the techniques of finding an internship and finding a job, very much the same.
Perfect, perfect. I like that. And so, with regards to your podcast, like you're, as you say, you're on episode 30 coming up right there. Now,
Yeah,
congratulations, put it
thank
this
you.
way.
I'm still
Look,
going. Yeah,
hey,
thanks.
all I've got to simply say is like the sort of like I've just told the sort of most podcasts, the vast majority of them is like episode 5 and they go bye bye.
It's oh well.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not a quitter. Tell me about my future, Miwa. How is it around your, what episode are you on?
I'm on the 100. Well,
What
with
episode is this?
110.
All
So
right.
yeah.
All
So
right.
like this is the thing with regards to your future with podcasting, if you're doing the interview side of things, because I started out where it was like just me and my silky voice on the microphone, just
Silky.
talking. There's like, yes, let me tell you about my thoughts for today. It's like after episode 5, I was like, yeah, maybe I should not just be talking to myself. This is not good. So
Yeah, the solo shows are hard. I alternate.
yeah,
They're a lot of work. Yeah, I
yeah.
get it.
So basically, I was like, okay, let's just say my first podcast where I interviewed someone I didn't know personally, like because I got my lady on my podcast. I'm like, yes, got friends on my podcast. Like, yeah, it was with Leon Thompson, I believe, and like, yeah. All I've got to say, when I first started out doing remote interviews, I had it all set up with Skype. Let's just say Skype is the most awful thing to use in these circumstances. Look, people might say, you Skype is easy. Skype with OBS or just doing it direct. No, no. Basically, I set up with OBS. Was like, okay, double checked it worked, triple checked it worked. Soon as Liam came on, it did not work for love, money, or toffee. So I was like, okay, this is not good. Fortunately, did podcasting, so he recorded it, sent it over
Ah,
to me, and I tried doing
smart.
Skype. Yeah, tried doing Skype a couple of times, and it was like no, it was like too fake. And like yes, I discovered Zoom, and fortunately, the rest of the world discovered Zoom pretty much at the same time.
Right. Right. Hopefully, our bandwidth will survive our conversation. Yeah,
Oh,
there's a lot out there. It is. It's a steep learning curve.
oh yeah.
I already had the microphone because I was doing the interviews, and it's not, it doesn't take a lot to get into it, but to do it right. And there's so much out there, there's a reason why people are hearing us right now. You're doing a great job.
Oh, oh, thank you. Thank you. I'll send you the check in the post.
Oh, sure thing.
Yeah, don't cash it until 2025. It'll bounce.
Oh,
There's
all
no,
right.
it's like have it framed. There you go.
I'll do that. Yeah.
Yeah, but like this is the thing. You're on episode like 30 now, so you know what I mean. All I've got to simply say is, yeah, keep going strong, and before you know it, people will pick it up, like start picking it up, and yeah, your circle will grow. What I'd simply say is the quiet times, where it just seems like sometimes things don't seem to be going your way. You just got This is where you got to turn to the reason why you're doing it. Keep focused with that because those times will come. But yeah,
Indeed.
yeah, but staying strong with it. Yeah, but
You don't have to worry about me.
I
Yeah, I won't be stopping my podcast.
no, and like you know what I mean. I think that's when many a person like falls short because I remember I was on this website called Matchmaker where they basically you can get people for interviews and there was
Oh yeah, I know Matchmaker. Right. Yeah,
yeah,
for sure. A few of those popping up.
yeah. And it was like, okay, there was this one guy who was like, oh, I'm a chef. I'm like currently on furlough and stuff like this. I was like, okay, yeah. Sent him a message. I'd like to get him on. And it was like, yeah, no. And then I haven't seen
Right.
another episode from the guy at all. So it was like, okay.
Yeah, it's like a box of chocolates, no doubt about it.
Yes. Life is like a box of chocolate.
Yes, I couldn't help it. I know all these
It's like,
days. Forrest Gump. Too funny.
yeah, I've got to ask because you're a sports guy, like a sporty guy. What is your favorite sporty
My favorite sport.
movie?
Oh, my favorite sport movie.
Yeah,
Slapshot.
Slapshot.
Yeah, Paul Newman.
Uh,
Going way back. Old time hockey.
okay. Yeah. Wait, didn't that have the three brothers in it with the glass?
Yes, it was the three brothers, Hanson brothers.
Yes. They
Put
were
the foil on before every game. Absolutely. If you've not seen that movie,
I have seen that movie, and
I
like,
didn't have to hesitate on that question. I've never
yeah,
been asked that.
no, because like this is the thing. It's like there are certain sort of like I am a sucker for a sports movie. If it's look, if it was a British sports movie, Chariots of Fire, yes. But like if it was like, oh yeah, Manchester United, like no, because I'm a Liverpool fan, that's just too close to home. Get out of it. But if it's a sports movie, like from the States, like remember the Titans, like frig,
That's a good one. The
yeah,
Miracle on Ice, honestly, I know it's second reference, but
yeah.
that's probably my second favorite. It's a great movie.
Yeah, I know you're going to be
Inspiring.
leaning hard towards ice hockey because that's the one for you.
Right. I mean, I'll just name every ice hockey movie
I,
one at a time.
I'm waiting for you to get to that one certain movie which involves ice hockey.
Are you testing me right now?
I'm not testing you. Why would I test you, man?
All right. We'll have to come back to that.
Hey,
I didn't expect to have this conversation.
hey,
We're talking about personal development. Who knows what direction you're going to go in?
hey, what can I say? I'm tricky like that.
You are. I'll come back to it if it comes to mind.
Uh-huh.
I'm drawing a blank.
Yeah.
Huh.
Mm,
All right.
yeah.
Fair enough.
They are
Got me
mighty.
off guard.
Yeah. Yeah, no, because like this is the thing. I remember the Titans, like the last one I really saw was Rudy. It's like,
Rudy, that's a good one. Yeah, that's
yeah,
definitely good.
that was,
The Notre Dame guy.
yes.
I wanted to play the one game. Ah, now I've ruined it. Sorry.
It's like spoiler alerts for
Spoiler alert.
which is
Yeah.
about 20
Yeah, too
years
late.
old. It's like, you know what I mean?
Nah, it's still there.
Like so with this, I have to ask, like, how, like, you mentioned you started the book and everything like this, like, back in March. Like, how long did it take you to, like, get this all together? Because it's like you dusted over it, but you didn't go, yes, this is how it did, and you didn't sort of go through the whole process.
Right. So it's Z-isms, which of course in your neck of the woods might be considered
Um,
Z-isms.
that you
And
saying correctly.
yes, I just want to be respectful. Insights to Live By is the subtitle. And I started, it took me probably about 8-9 months to write, and
Mm,
then another 2 or 3 months. I think the challenge for any writer is when's it done? When do you say, okay, I got to stop here? Because you always want to keep adding and adding and adding and, you know, taking it through an edit. But I had, I have a thing for dates, and I had made a commitment that I was going to get the book out by Leap Day. Just, and the book has a little bit of theme around LEAP. There's this life enrichment action plan. So I'm kind of funny about those things. So I did. I got the setting the deadline, forced me to, okay, I'm done. I'm out
yeah.
of time. And I did. I got the ebook out at that point, and then the paperback came out a few weeks later. And now I'm working on the audiobook and a workbook. So it just keeps going.
Ah. I would imagine like you like know when to stop, but like this is the thing. When you do stop, what do you take out? That must be another tricky thing to get hold of.
What
How?
do you take out of the book?
Yeah. No,
Like it
basically,
can't all be in there.
yeah.
What your editor tells you to. Basically. I don't think a lot came out of the book. It was really just polishing it. Because we're talking about areas, if I may, just covering a few different facets,
Yeah.
certainly around self-discovery and mindset. And then that's really naturally at the foundation to your question earlier about where someone would start. And then you get into personal interactions and relationships, and it elevates, building one onto the other around mindfulness, harnessing and amplifying your awareness, uh, gratitude. It gets into the law of attraction, and then beyond that, with the law of attraction, certainly I think everyone at least familiar enough with it knows that it's powered by gratitude, and whether you subscribe to that or not, that chapter, I didn't invent the law of attraction or quantum physics for that matter, but I think most people recognize the enrichment of gratitude and it grounding you in the present, but it doesn't write a book for you. The
Mm.
law of attraction isn't going to start a company. So that comes back to that inevitability and putting that into practical action around what I mentioned earlier in how you're setting a goal and working backwards from that, getting so clear about your why or whatever that goal is for you. Most people, like such as in a business plan, for example, they'll start at point A. I'm at point A, and here I want 3 months, 6 month, year,
Mm.
3, 5, 10. This is where I want to be. But when you're looking at it from this vantage point, you want to start all the way out at point B so that you're working backwards. If you think about it like you're lining up dominoes, how straight of a line can you line them up to? And then it has less to do with the uh, the full length of those dominoes as it does the tipping point. So you might say self-sustainability is your tipping point. You're at your no look back phase. Something with the Internship Institute, that's systemic in terms of it's not just the trench work around internship program, apprenticeship program development. There's some major impact of the purpose of the nonprofit that will probably, in terms of that vision, exceed my lifespan. So it has less to do with having to be around. That's what succession planning is for, as much as it is getting to the never look back phase. What is that? And it was really important to me to, and it is, of course, for the reader to come away with everything is practical and is actionable. And there is that life enrichment action plan around winning the battle within. And that's kind of what's leading me to the workbook and whatnot, because it's meant to be as beneficial as possible. So someone asked me, well, what's your next book? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I put everything I have into this book. Ask me in 10 years, get some life experience and I'll have something more to talk about. But I really did give this my all. I'm really proud of it.
Ah, I'm glad. Like, you know what? I'm glad I can feel that from you because look, like writing a book and people like go, yes, one of my dreams is to write a book. And many people just it's a dream, it's a pipe dream. They never actually go out there and do it. But I think there are some people which are, oh, I've started a book, and they're quite naive about how much hard work it takes trying to keep track of everything to say going, okay.
I really do think, and we talked about it earlier, it doesn't have to be this mountain.
Mm,
It really is just about getting into action. You have these thoughts, what this book's going to be, sit down, frame it out, spend a few days, right? It's only a few days of your life. You'll know fairly quickly whether you've got it or you don't. Even just relying on what you do in that shorter period of time and start giving it around to people. There's this book you want to read, so just get into action. And then again, they might say, well, it's all right. No, tell me the truth. No, it sucks. So don't write it.
yeah.
Can I say that on your show?
Yeah. Well, you know what? Oh,
All right.
sucks.
No one's heard any F-bombs or anything.
Well, hey, look, like, all I got to say with colorful language like that. Whew.
Man, you all right? You okay?
Yeah, look,
I use the S word.
It's like, oh, my mind. It's like,
Meanwhile, gathering himself.
it's like, oh,
Those who can't see.
what, such profanity, sir.
I know. I'm clean. What can I say?
No worries, no worries. We're good. So now it's 2020 right now, and we all know it. We're feeling it. Yeah. So what do you think, how do you think your life might play out, or your plans might play out, say in like from now sort of till 2025?
Well, that's actually the perfect question, because when I was doing my initial interviews for the book, and you have your introduction, and I talked about how, I want to personally enrich the lives of, or positively impact the lives of as many people as possible. And of course, it sounds good. It's true, but it's just like flighty. It didn't really sit right with me. I really wanted to be more specific. So I've now set the intention of positively and personally enriching the lives of at least 100 million people, at least 100 million people by 2025. So I'm now working backwards. That's my current point B. What's that going to take? And the things we've talked about with the book and podcast, and I have no misgivings. I'm not going to have that large of a following, but certainly when you get into social media and heading into the speaking circuit, paid speaking, I think the typical trajectory of those who are in this industry is the steep learning curve I'm on right now. And I have a coach, and just how do I do this, and being basically a global influencer, I guess, is the term. So if I look at that as being inevitable, back to the concept in the book, I can say, well, I'm a household name, but the houses don't know it yet. So I just need to step into that. I have to, a lot of people talk about that mind shift and identity shift. So I'm working on it. It's not easy. And for anybody who's working on something like this, who are you for the person you want to become? Well, what's that like? Right. This back to law of attraction, certainly to a degree. And, experience life now, how you want to experience life for where you want to go. And I'm working on it. I'm a work in progress, just like anybody, right?
Yeah, constantly evolving, constantly growing, learning and growing, I guess.
It's the pursuit.
Yeah, I'm liking that a lot. So 100 million people, and like that is a tall order to get 100 million people. Like, I've got to say, like, I think, you've got the chops to do
it. Tall order, if you believe it's a tall order. If you go back again to the law of attraction, and this is meant to be very practical, and we talked about gratitude, and when you're talking about something that is more effortful, it really is powered by self-belief. When you identify that point B, you have to believe in it to the level of faith, and know in that level of faith that is not just achievable, that in a sense, and what makes it inevitable, is that you've already achieved it just in the future. And so what's important about that is it instills you with the passion and the grit and everything that you need, because you're going to get knocked down. I mean, as an entrepreneur, I get knocked down once a day, 10 times a week. You just have to keep getting back up, and it's hard.
Yep.
But you're clear about what that endpoint is, and through that self-belief that you're going to make it happen, and so you do. And that's what powers knowing that something. I wouldn't set the goal if I wasn't confident in achieving it.
Mm.
I just have to figure that out now.
Yep. No. Cool. Cool. Now, I know you said you didn't read any sort of self-help books or anything like that, but is there sort of anything you've had in your like you've turned to over the course of your life, which like basically has been your kind of your north star or like helped you along the way?
Absolutely. The chapter 1 of Z-isms is called earned confidence. And it's the main guiding principle of the book. It's rooted in the fact, as simple as this sounds, that we've all been through everything we have in our lives. We've all been through the ringer, and we're still standing. We're still here. And so it lends itself to recognize that everyone, no matter what age you're at, because we've all been through however much we have, are perfectly capable of coping with whatever comes our way in real time, which is to say, you don't have to worry. You don't have to be anxious or stress about things that are not certain to happen. It's straight logic. It's going to happen anyway. And you know that you've handled everything you have up until now, you'll handle that too. And at the root of earned confidence, and I'll tell you what the origin of this too, which is very personal, quite honestly, but at the root of it is self-kindness.
Hmm.
That's also at the root of the book, because when you talk about personal development and things that are the larger concepts, my self-esteem, my self-love, I want to feel this way about myself, but it's just vague. How do I get there? You can't, you're grasping at it. But when you look at it from a vantage point of self-kindness, you're either being kind to yourself or you're not. That is the foundational building block. It's the barometer. So you start out with the question, why be anything less than kind to yourself? That's a rhetorical question. And so that in any given situation, for people, for example, who have a hard time saying no. And if you're here, you're literally thinking to yourself, I really need to say no more often. And if you're in that very moment, the reason why someone's being, asking you, they're probably being a little manipulative. That is chapter 2 around being aware of spiders. That you need to be able to recognize that this is not in my best interest. As much as I want to be a people pleaser, if I say yes, then you think through, how's that going to make me feel? It's a double whammy, right? Now you said yes to something you didn't want to, then you have to do it.
Mm.
You take a hit, you really feel terrible about yourself. Your self-esteem takes a hit. So if you're in that moment, just from a practical standpoint, if you're approaching it from the vantage of self-kindness, to say no. And in that moment, it's, hey, I've got a lot of things going on. I would love to help you. It's just not the right time for me. Happy to help some other time. Yeah, like, what are they going to say? They'll respect you for saying no. And it is that simple. Now, to the point I made earlier, at the origin of earned confidence, when I was in my mid-20s, my mom, something was wrong with her. I'm the youngest of 4, and we knew that something wasn't right.
Mm.
And my father and her called a family meeting with a family therapist. And so we knew, and we were really bracing. And this was in the early 80s. And I didn't expect, none of us expected, that she had a routine surgery and got a tainted blood transfusion and contracted HIV.
Oh.
And of course, this is at the very worst time, at the beginning of it, and the stigma was so bad. They didn't tell us for 2 years. Like, I can't imagine. And I'm close to my mom's age when we lost her now, and it's just it's a huge reality check. And she suffered with it for you know 10, 12 years after that. We saw her this was all before the drug cocktails.
Yeah.
There was nothing. And so she really did get the worst of it. And there were any number of times in the latter years when we thought we'd lose her. She had this infection, that infection, and she's not going to recover. And every single time you're bracing for that. You're going through the emotional, anguish of expecting your mom's going to die, and she'd pull through. And then you're like, well, what did I put myself through that for? I just need to let things unfold. And it was through, honestly, that experience, especially, that is at the foundation of my earned confidence and talking about the topic, because it doesn't get any worse, quite honestly, that I can think of. And having come through that, I learned to deal with things in real time, and knowing that, I'm going to get through this too, as hard as that was. And again, back to the earned confidence itself. If you think of what are the, not that you're trying to have a competition here, but what are the top 2 or 3 things I've had to make it through in my life? What's the worst thing I've absolutely had to cope with? As bad as it was, I'm still standing, right? Well, I mean, anything that's not as bad as that, you're already certain you're going to cope with it. Hopefully nothing worse than that will ever happen. And if it does, you'll have to cope with that too. So it really is a bit of a logic formula. It's about staying in the present, grounding yourself in gratitude, in self-kindness, ridding yourself of past regrets and resentments, the guilt, all the things that are holding you back, that drain your emotional well-being, and living a life of enrichment.
Perfect. Wow. What can
So I shared that in the book. Like I said, there were a lot of personal shares, and that was certainly one of the more major ones.
well, yeah, I've got to say, like, going through an experience like that, and yeah, I remember when I was a kid, when like HIV and AIDS and sort of came about, and sort of, as you mentioned, the stigma and just basically not knowing, and how it went from one extreme to another. But then
they were afraid to tell us. It was so bad for those 2 years that my parents were afraid to tell their own kids, because they thought they'd lose us somehow. Right, I'm in my mid-20s. We're all grown.
Yeah.
So it's not like I got little kids in the house. It's like, am I going to alienate my own children by telling them I'm going through this? It really was. It's just horrible. So it's actually coming up on 25 years now since we lost her. So, as raw and as fresh as this sounds, I've certainly come through quite a bit, having gone through that. And then since then, and it's, with any grief, it's it's manageable.
No, that's the thing. If anything's going to put life into a much more of a clearer perspective, it's going to be that. And yeah,
we all go through things. It's all relative, but we all have to struggle through things. And just remember to continue grounding yourself in earned confidence. And it's the same thing that goes back to the entrepreneurial side, and having that self-belief, and knowing that even though something is in the future, you've already achieved everything that you've already achieved, and now this is something that's within your capability to do, and so you will, and then you will yourself to do it.
No, that's fantastic. And I would like to say thank you very much for sharing that. That is appreciated. And yeah. Now, yes.
Meanwhile, I know it's very affecting, and I really appreciate it. I mean, again, not everyone's seeing you, and I just, I appreciate him. It's very genuine. It's a hard thing to hear from somebody, especially for the first time, right? I mean, it's not new to me, but it's a very heavy thing to talk about, and it does set you back, and I appreciate it.
No, this is the thing. It's your story, it's your truth, and what I mean. I'm never want to make light of that, but yeah, I've got to say, yes,
we do have to lift the spirit here. We can't end the conversation on that note. That much
this is the thing. It stands testament to who you are as a person, and being so positive optimistic, and like, yeah, just this sort of energy force of like, yeah, positivity. But like, yeah, but
Yeah,
it's,
you got me. I
hey,
mean, it's funny. My wife and I were talking earlier, and she's saying, we're the perfect. This was this morning, and she's kind of more of a cynic, and she'll say one thing, and then I'll, give her the optimistic view. We were joking about how we balance each other out. It's like, well, if someone starts out a day and they say this is gonna be a cruddy day, and another person starts it out and says it's gonna be a great day. Well, which person, what we expect tends to happen. Which person is going to have the more likely to have the better day?
mm,
So positivity works. I'm pretty sure most people know that. So that's it's a choice too.
fair enough, fair enough.
Same set of circumstances apply to optimism and pessimism.
Absolutely agreed. But okay, let me just say this. I've got to reveal that yes, I am a supreme being of cosmic power. Um, yes, I have the ability to grant you one wish, and before you even say anything, you can't have, oh, I wish for more wishes. You can't do like can't write down a list of things on a piece of paper going, I wish everything on this piece of paper comes true. No. And you can't have world peace because everyone keeps asking for it. And yeah, it's a tall order.
What's mine?
Yeah. What would be your one wish?
Can we kind of put aside some of the obvious things around health and family and grandkids and financial stability
Uh,
and
let,
all
hey,
that? That's just assumed. We can, that would be kind of be boring.
hey,
Honestly, the first thing that came to mind was maybe just because it's so fresh is to hit the 100 million. And I guess when we just came off the conversation of being earned confidence and that self belief, it doesn't really sound as much like a wish when I already have a level of faith that it's already been achieved in the future. But I'll take a little bit of help. That's
hey,
what I want to achieve right now. That's my current why. So, that's one of those things. It got come back to the ultimate why of in making that happen. That definitely is, I did it. I had a great run and I left nothing on the table and I just couldn't feel better about my life. So granting that wish would likely reinforce that feeling.
excellent. I like that. Oh, well, I'll do. I'll get working on that for you right away. Look,
Thank you.
yep. Don't send me a check or anything like that because like yeah, I will try cashing it immediately. I need the money.
No, I'll be cashing your checks,
Yeah,
right? I mean, I'll hang on to it that long.
okay. Okay. Yeah.
Fair
Yeah.
enough.
I would say yeah, $2.50 and like yeah, McDonald's like fries and something like that. Yeah, you got
Yeah.
it.
I mean, interest compounds. We might be okay.
Perfect.
Got a long way to go.
Yes. Can you tell the lovely people out there where they can find you, how they can get in contact with you? How can they become part of your 1 million squad army following?
100 million.
Yes. Yes.
Well, my primary site is mattzinman.com. That's easy enough. You'll find really everything there. Certainly it connects back to the Internship Institute. It's about Z-isms, insights to live by, helps you get to the Insights to Live By podcast. And you can certainly go both at the site and on Amazon. You can go and read the first part of the book for free. You'll know if you want to keep reading by buying it, and certainly appreciate that support. And any feedback that you have for me from this conversation or listening to a podcast, I'm always trying to learn and grow. I'd really appreciate hearing from anybody about what they think and how I can do that. So thank you, Miwa.
Huh? Thank you, Matt. Hey, pleasure having you on today, sir. Pleasure. Thank you for coming on. It's been, as I say, I'm going to say it again, a pleasure. And
Thank you.
yeah, liking
Thank
the
you.
energy.
Much appreciated. Very grateful. Thank you for everyone who is sticking with us in the conversation, and just wish everyone well. Thanks.
Great. And yes, I'd like to say thank you to you, my friends, my life warriors out there. Please, thank you for staying with us, sticking with us. Stay safe, stay well, be awesome, be excellent, be fantastic, be all the positive bees you can be in this world and then some. Have a great day, guys. And yeah, peace. Yeah. And we are